I'm Alicia Carr. And I got, oh, look at this, I got a nice little crowd here. My name is Alicia Carr, and I'm the CEO and founder of PEVO. And I'm doing a talk on why I decided to become a superhero of the social world. So the reason why I'm here is GitHub actually did a video on me that was somewhat a sample of it today, but I'm going to give you the full video right now. My name is Alicia Vicky Carr, and I am 54 years old. I have 3 grown children, and then I have 8 grandbabies. And me and my husband been married 36 years. My granddaughter, she turns 13 this year. Daya didn't know what I do. So there was one day she just happened to say, "Grandma, you know nothing about tech." And I was like, "Excuse me? Did you say I don't know nothing about tech? Google grandma name." Google grandma name, and when you finish Google grandma name, call me back. About 2 hours later, she called me back and said, "Grandma, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you do all this stuff." I was getting my 2nd generation iPad, met this 16-year-old boy. He said, "I learned how to create an app off of YouTube," and I turned to my husband and said, "That's what I wanted to do." I took the Objective-C course, learned in 90 days, and that's when the mentor told me, you know, maybe you should consider doing a domestic violence app. I started crying because my daughters, my mother, my aunts, all were victims of domestic violence. I mean, I would tell any woman of color, just put your hands on something that is in technology. I'm telling my grandkids, you can do anything you want, so be creative and do something that you enjoy. Grandma's doing something that she enjoyed in her life, because I want them to have that opportunity to say, you do everything you want to do. This is what I would love to see an engineer look like if a woman, fine as hell, dressed to look like she's there to impress and not be discriminated against. I am Alicia Carr. I am a grandmother, a mentor, a nerd, an activist. I am a developer. So I want to talk about the history and the statistics of domestic violence. Domestic violence have everything to do with technology. So the first thing we're going to see is women with disabilities are 40% more likely to experience intimate partners violence, especially severe violence, than women without disabilities. A woman is beaten every 9 seconds in the US. Every minute, 20 people are victims of intimate partner violence. That's men and women. Worldwide, men who were exposed to domestic violence as children are 3 to 4 times more likely to perpetrate intimate partners violence as adults than men who do not experience domestic violence abuse as children. Intimate partners violence is the leading cause of female homicide injury related to death during pregnancy. Women are victims of domestic violence are 8 times more likely to be killed by an intimate partner if they are firearms in the home. Black women experience intimate partnership violence at a rate 35% higher than white women. Domestic violence is the 3rd leading cause of homelessness amongst families. Go back. So we're talking now about the numbers. Some of these numbers are very important to me. I'm the one that says 1,000. I'm not going to go through all of them because I want y'all to see it, but 1,509 is the number of women murdered by men they knew in 2011. And of 1,509 women, 926 were killed by the intimate partners, and 264 of those were killed by intimate partners during an argument. Another one is 1 in 7 number of men who will be victims of severe violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. 3, the number of women murdered every day by a current or former male partner in the US. And also 18,500,000, the number of mental health care visits due to intimate partner violence every year. When I think about domestic violence, I can tell you that I am a child of domestic violence. My mother was a victim. My daughters were victims. My aunts were victims. And I had a girlfriend who died in 2004 in her driveway, where her partner shot her in her driveway, took her car, and drove off. And basically, she died from her wounds. And so when I think about when I created my app, I had to think about the technology and how technology has every effect on how women are victims of domestic violence. So technology has given abusers more methods of control and monitoring victims. So think about it this way. Computers, a lot of women, a lot of victims have to find a way to get out. And the computers is the first thing they have to use. There's no more paper trail, you know. We're talking about them going out there and trying to find this information to get out of this situation. 75% of the programs reported that a survivor location is being tracked by smartphone or device. We're talking about our phones have the GPS on there. So let's think about as an abuser. If he wants to track his victim, it's so easy because with the iPhone you have friends, you know, and then you also have the Android phones also have a tracking device in there. So it's so easy for them to say, okay, where are you at today, and track that person. Not only do they use that, they have car tracking devices. They put it underneath your car. They can put it in your purse. So there's so many ways for victims to get tracked. More than half the programs report that survivors are saying abusers spoofing call IDs. Nearly 70% of the programs report that abusers are posting pictures and videos of victims online to purposely distract or harm the victims. And spoofing is, if you know, there's apps for that. There's so many apps where I can say, I want to call this person, but I don't want them to know who I am, and give a different name. And that's very common in trying to harass. And it's not just victims of domestic violence, it also consists of stalkers, you know, as well. That's their way of trying to use technology to keep track of how they can follow a victim. Programs also report that survivors are asked to help on how to manage their technology and stay safe while using them. So survivors are given that opportunity. You know, they get that device in their hand, and sometimes they have to give up that information, you know, as a victim. And so when you think about technology, technology has so much effect on victims of domestic violence. Let's talk about security. The victims of domestic violence fear is security. Everything has to be secure for them to want to use the device. So when I create, as you see pictures of, if you see the pictures that I put up there, that's actually my app. It's already in iTunes, and there's an old version in Google Play. But the first screen that you see here is a calculator. And the reason why I did that is because the app they should not know that they have this kind of resource on their phone. If they do, it would cause an abuser to be very violent and harm them. So the purpose of me creating this app is to make it secure that when they actually go into the phone, it doesn't look like a domestic violence app. My first version had pocketbooks on there. It had these pretty pocketbooks, and you know, men are not into pocketbooks, and you know, women, we're into pocketbooks. We're into like the pretty color ones, and so I created that to kind of disguise, you know, where when they first go in, it's not worth going in because it looks like a pocketbook. So if you think that your activity online or offline are being monitored, it is, okay? People who are abused often want to be known, their victims, every move, every interaction, everything. If this is something you're experiencing, it's important to think through how they might be tracking your online activity. So like I said, computer, mobile devices, online accounts, like banking accounts, I mean, things that you normally do where you think that nobody should track you, they do. And so with the Carr adapter, when you do it, I found out that there's even malware. So when we talk about privacy as well for domestic violence, they need privacy as to be safe from physical harm. They need that privacy. So, for example, shelters do not have addresses. Domestic violence shelters do not have addresses. If you go online and you search for domestic violence shelters, the only thing you'll have is the name of the shelter, the city, the state, the zip code, and a telephone number. And the reason being is that abusers will go there and most likely try to harm them, and not only harm them, but other victims as well. So the privacy is very, very important when it comes down to being a victim of domestic violence. And they take advantage of this, getting the personal information in our society where aggressors want to know everything their victim is doing. That's how they control them. Abusers can violate privacy by sharing these details or by using them to gain more information of a victim. So they know everything about, if you are a victim of domestic violence and your partner is the abuser, they know everything about you. They're gonna know, they can basically tell you what time you go food shopping. They're gonna give you a certain amount of money to spend. They're gonna give you, tell you where you have to go and what time you have to be back. So you think about that control aspect of being a victim of domestic violence. And this, again, technology has everything to do with this because, again, we use tracking devices for these women. There was a situation, a privacy example, that an actual domestic violence company, organization filed a complaint with the FTC where they're saying that there's mouse software that these abusers can buy or even stalkers can buy to track their victims. So what they did, this particular organization reached out to the FTC and said, we need to stop this. We need to make them stop this and have these companies stop selling these malwares to track these victims. Because the malware we can use, you can not only go, it's not only for your computer, but it's for your, if you have an actual, let's say, Android phone, because Android, you can actually get malware into the phone. So that's why they had to put a stop to it. And a lot of people don't know. There's situations where Google accidentally lists the address of the shelters several times. And they had got contacted to shut it down because of the safety of the victims. Safety is everything. The thing is about the safety is they are always in danger. And they have to find a way to be safe. They have to strategically plan their exit. And I give people the example, if you're in a bank robbers come in, and what happens when the bank robbers come in? They say, okay, you can't leave, we're gonna hold you hostage. There's no way you're gonna try to just run out of there. The first thing they're gonna do is what? Shoot you. The second thing you have to do is you have to think strategic. You got to say, I need to plan my exit. I have to negotiate my way out of here. The same thing with victims of domestic violence. Everything has to be planned. So there's no way for you to say, I was that one person that said, you can get out of it. There's no, you can't tell me you can't get out of this. You can't tell me you can't walk out of it. And then when I seen what happened to my girlfriend when she tried to do exactly what I told her that she needed to do, and she probably heard from everybody else, he then shot her and killed her because he said that you're not going nowhere. You're never going to leave me. And this is not the first time these happen to a lot of women. So when you hear these stories of these women are dying or there's women who got shot in front of their place of business where they work at because of the way how they felt that they tried to get out of the situation and it wasn't strategically planned. And I've met women who have said that they had to negotiate with their abuser to get out of their relationship. You know, meaning I won't report you, or I'll let you see the kids, just let me live here for a couple of months. And a lot of times that works, and a lot of times it doesn't. So intimate harm, short and long-term risks of being killed, risks of self-inflicted harm, including suicides due impulsive, severe sexual and reproductive health consequences such as unwanted pregnancies, sexual transmitted infections, and danger to children who may be involved. So being a child of domestic violence is a huge problem as far as victims, because the kids are more affected than anything as they grow up, because they don't feel that their relationship or the situation they're in it just makes them more victims as well. A lot of these kids, if you read from the statistics, that they also become victims, they become abusers as well. Now, building PEVO. I became an iOS developer to learn Objective-C to build apps. When I started building the apps, when I decided to become a developer, it took me a year and a half to learn Objective-C. I picked up a boot camp. I got a boot camp in 2013. It was $125. I learned Objective-C. I then created this app in January. I started building the app in January. The tutor who gave me the idea, I was very emotional when he said, build a domestic violence app. And I didn't think to build the app to come to this point to fight a cause. I built the app to get a job. It was my resume. And so when building it, the first version of the app was Purple Pocketbook. And that was the one I said we had all the pretty pocketbooks in it. And then for me to build it, I had to understand that I had to also be the victim, and I also had to be the abuser. I had to make the app work for victims. I had to think of the app to be safer for victims. I have to understand what they needed to get out, because as a victim, the abuser is giving them so much false information that they're shutting them away from everything. So for them to get online on the computer to try to find this information to get out, the computer already have history telling the abuser where they're going to. So I had to think for them. So when I created this app, I put the law and the things that they would need as victims. When my mother, when I was a young girl, and my stepfather would abuse my mom, and I would try everything to protect her. And in doing so, I was getting beat up as well. And so for me, I kind of understand what it was to a child trying to help their parents, their moms, but also we have to help the moms understand what they're doing to their child. The app consists of a list of shelters per state. In Georgia, there's a lot of shelters. So, for example, all the shelters may be filled in the city of Atlanta, but it's not filled in, say, Macon, Georgia. That victim may have an opportunity to get there, to get in a safe haven. I added the law to it because as a victim, you got to know what you can and can't do it, because the abuser is telling her, putting all this stuff in her head. She really don't know that she can basically get a lawyer, get a divorce. She's being told that she can't fight for her children when she can fight for her children. So we wanted to get more substance, more accurate information in the hands of the victims. I want to emphasize on technology and domestic violence. Technology is everything to do with how these women can get out of their relationships. It's in the palm of their hands, not on a computer. There's no way for a victim to be tracked with an app. I made it where he wouldn't even know what the app looked like. And so that's how I actually designed the app. I started with the calculator, and I allowed them to go into that to be able to get the necessary information. I created a quiz so you know that you are, if a victim is a victim, they would know they're a victim by doing the quiz. A lot of victims of domestic don't even know they are. And a lot of them don't report that they are a victim of domestic. They do not report it. Also, immigration. Well, there was a law when Obama was in office that helped victims get asylum. So if you're a victim of domestic violence, for example, I had a woman in Atlanta who was from Mexico, and she didn't speak much well English, but she was being abused by her husband. And what happened was that they deported him because he was abusing her, so she automatically was able to stay because she was a victim of domestic violence to raise her children. But then again, it came down to she needed money. She had to pay her bills. She had to get food. And those are the things that, we have a lot of people, people that are helping these victims seem to forget. The abuser is the main source of income in the household, and they depend on them. And then she had to figure out how to do it herself at that point because he had been deported. Unemployment by state. Like for Georgia, there was a precedent where a woman went to Georgia Supreme Court, and basically her employer didn't want to pay her unemployment because she quit because her fear of her abuser finding a location of where she worked. And so she kept pleading the case, and she went as far as the Supreme Court and won. So so now in the state of Georgia is that if you report that you are a victim of domestic violence, then you automatically can, and report it to your employer, they have to pay your unemployment. But every state is not like that. So Georgia may have it, but then Wisconsin may not have it, And then I have other sources, like, for example, there's so much resources out there to help victims. Like, for example, in the state of Georgia, there's a place to get free furniture. There's a place to get food. There's a place to get clothes for your kids. There's a place that even help women get apartments, and they will pay up to maybe 3 to 6 months for their rent until they get back on their feet. So those are things that the resources that these women need to get started and start all over again, which is when you go to a shelter, you're there and you're like, okay, you're only there for 3 months, and then a lot of times those women who are in those shelters land up going right back to the abusers. So building. It was a challenge building the app. It really was. I basically typed everything into the app. So when I created it, I copy and paste everything from the website, paste it into the actual app. Everything is in the app. There is no, at that time I didn't create open source. I didn't have a database. It was me, myself, and I doing this. And the fact that I was just thinking about it is Objective-C and Swift. So I have 2 codes in there, and it wasn't playing nice. And so the challenges was adding the shelters. The law, the same thing. I had to copy and paste all that stuff in. And if you're, database, data entry, we all have done data entry and typing, and you find the shortcuts to try to make things easier. And so that's what I did when I started building the app. I just know that everything that's in the app was hand done. And so the resources, the immigration, the quiz, I got help for the quiz because the quiz was challenging to try to give them a number of, if it was, a number of 5, if it was you are abusive, and 0 if you're not. And so now we're working on a new app. I'm trying to get the app national right now. Right now, I got Ohio, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and that's just the shelters. And then I have Georgia, which have all the other information because that's what I based the first app off of. And so now the women want in-app chat. They want to be able to chat in the app without the abuser knowing that they're doing it, which is really cool. So you can text anybody if you're in a situation, you can still talk to them like a family member or a friend, to let them know and make them aware that you want to talk to them. Journaling. In the journal, they want a journal, will allow them to take pictures and take video. I was very skeptical of that. I didn't want to do that because the whole privacy issue with the video, because if video is recorded and it's stored somewhere up in the cloud, basically, just situation like with Apple, they would come to me and basically try to get that data from them. And I do not want to deal with that part of it. So we're working on creating where it's all stored within the app, or either can go up, it's all stored in the app, because if they can't even put it up to the iCloud, because of the fact, most likely, the abuser have access to that as well. So I have to think of every aspect of creating this app for the safety of the victims. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a chance that abuser will not get access to the app, but it's much safer them getting it on a mobile device than it would be on a computer. Because it's easy for you to get on a computer and look at the history and say, this is where they're going. Whereas in a mobile app, you can actually hide the app in many places in different folders. Somebody gave me the idea yesterday. I think it was Tuesday, to do a shelter rating. And the reason why is that because a lot of shelters are not as, as resourceful or helpful as a lot of people think they are. There was a situation where a woman finally did get out of her situation, and she was successful in when she strategically got out of it, contacted some shelters, and they didn't have no place for her to go, and landed up putting her in a hotel, which she then turned around and went back to the abuser. So it doesn't really help if you don't have the necessary resources to say, okay, don't call this shelter, or don't contact this shelter because it's not of a good standing that want to help you. I need to set up Firebase because when the women have a mobile device, and the abuser may eliminate all cell service, they still have Wi-Fi. So with doing that, if they was to drive by or walk by any location that has Wi-Fi, the actual app will update with any new information. It still keeps their privacy, and it still allows me to give them the necessary information for them to, still do what they need to do to be successful. And then there's this website, which I love so much. It's called womenslaw.org. And it doesn't have an API. And I would have to copy and paste everything into the API. Now, if I have to do that, there'll be I'll get all my daughters and my grandbabies to help me put that all in there. But the fact is that if I can create an API, it'd be easy for me to get all that information automatically pulled from into my app. And so with the open source community, I need your help. I need your help to help me build this app and to show the world that tech community care about social issues, and we support our own. So I'm looking for native developers. I'm looking for iOS and Android developers. More so, if there's women out there, more power to you. I would love for women to be a part of this. I'll take men too, but I'm hoping that, with that, I want men to understand. I have there's this little problem that men don't quite understand the reason why certain things are done for a cause, for domestic violence, and understanding that you can't use geolocation because there's no address. But we could definitely, I have a person working with me right now, and he said we can use it for them finding the nearest shelter by city and state. So there's ways we can do it, but we don't want to affect any form of the victims being harmed by the abuser, knowing that they're doing that right now. So if you can help me in any kind of way, I would greatly appreciate it. And so I want to thank you all for your support. I have a website and an email address and a Twitter, Instagram, and also I have a GoFundMe page that I am trying to raise enough money to make this a national app, so I can basically, I'm wanting to help these victims, and I wanted to get women and some men, if you're willing to help, I would appreciate it, to help me build this app to a national app. I have gotten contacted with this app, and I created it in 2014. It was built and finished by March. Apple gave me hell. It was finally submitted to Apple and approved on May 2nd. Never forget that date. It's important that I'm trying to get it to a point where once it gets national, I have gotten contacted from Canada, Australia, India, and some people even from London was asking me, did anybody from UK contact you? I was like, no, they didn't, but there's still information on the app that a lot of people still can use. They can't use the stake information, but they can use like how to get safety technology in the app, definitely can. And so that to me is a lot of the women who are downloading is more valuable than anything if they use that part of the app. So, I ended early. So, anybody got any questions? No questions? No questions, y'all? Wow. Okay. Well, I listed what I was looking for, but the thing is that just what I need help in creating is the extra functionality of the app. So let's see if I can go back. Yes, okay. So in the app, in-app chat, there is actual, and I can say I know because I know the guy who did it. There's code that Apple has already created that actually you can able to talk just within an app. It's like what's if app. What up? What up? Yeah, it's just like that. It's exactly like that, but just made for the victims of domestic violence. And so that's one thing. The thing is what I'm afraid of with the journal and photo part of it is the fact that the lawyers and will try everything to make me give up that information. And that's where I had an issue with. I don't want to create an iCloud account specifically for the app. And I don't think women should do the same because it's not safe for them to do it. I would rather them to give their phone to law enforcement or to a lawyer and show them the video and make sure, like normally we would have a time and date stamp for every picture, every video that's being done. And so that's what I was hoping to build inside the app. Another person recommended a kill safe button. So they can still, if they decide to delete the app, the data is still there. So if they decide to get the app back, it will never go away. But if they decide to delete everything, they have that option to delete the whole, it's not an account, just delete all the data in it, and they will have to start all over again. And I thought it was a good idea, for if they really have to be safe with it. With the shelter ratings, with that situation when I told you about the woman who tried to find a shelter and she landed up having to stay in a hotel, that's a huge problem when you talk about the safety when you talk about shelters. There's a lot of shelters that say they're helping, but they're not really helping. And then when you're a victim, they should be able to help you find another place that they can stay at, without them having to say, well, we can't have no place to stay, you have to put in a hotel. In fact, I had a woman who contacted me via email from California, and I don't have any information here, but what I did is got on my computer because all she had was her phone, and I found every shelter that I thought was gonna be very helpful to her, and I sent her all the links. So we're talking about just that information that these women need to be in a safer condition. And then, as I said, the Firebase is very important to me. I mean, the Firebase is where I need to store all that information for them to pull it, for them to be able to do all of that. And that's why I was thinking about the law. Like I said, if you go to that website, you wouldn't believe, you can go to any state you want to, and it'll have the law for that state for domestic violence. And I think it was like, I thought it was one of the coolest website ever because I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this exists. And it's one of them hidden gems, like you just don't know about it. It's like a secret location. So that's basically, what I'm looking for help. And I mean, I already have somebody to help me with the UX UI design. In fact, the very front of the app is not going to be a calculator anymore. It's going to be coupons. So these women can go get food and go get clothes, and they can get, so a lot of them, don't have no place to go, but they need, like, their kids need clothes or their kids need shoes. And I'm hoping to negotiate with some of these companies to offer these women the coupons and for them to go out there. It's like if they are homeless, and you see the number of women are homeless, and I've heard a lot of women who are victims of domestic violence just leave and become homeless, but then they have these coupons in the app to go get, my kids need McDonald's, even though it's unhealthy, but it's food. You know what I'm saying? So those are the things that I'm really trying to put into this app to make it so much more powerful in the hands of victims. Yes, ma'am. Say that again. Yes. Yeah. If you email me at let me go back to the last page. Okay. Well, if you email me, because I'm being like very selective because it's my baby. I'm very protective, and I'm afraid that some of y'all are abusers. But it's just that I'm just like very protective, and so yes, I would love to talk with y'all personally if you're interested in helping. And then, maybe we can work something out that, you can do some part of the app, and giving back. But I'm hoping that I raise enough funds on GoFundMe that I can pay some of the developers, because I think it's so important that, I feel like this because as a developer and as an iOS developer, even though I'm giving back to the community, it looks so good to put on your resume that you actually work on an app. You know what I'm saying? And it was a job, a contract assignment. It looks really nice, even though it never happened to me, but I would love, and the percentage of women mobile developers is so small right now that I want to build that, to a much bigger bunch of women doing mobile developers to give them an opportunity to get jobs. You all right now? So what do you think? Did I do good?